In this video, I want to show you about a very smart thermostat system for home heating. It works with all kinds of what they call hydronic heating systems, so that means it uses hot water, either in the form of radiators or in-floor heating with the pipes that carry the hot water. Now, a regular thermostat has two positions, two set points really. There's the temperature that you want the room to be, and then there's the temperature at which the heating system kicks in. So when your house cools down, the thermostat tells the heating system, okay, we want more heat, and that heat comes on, the heat warms the home, the thermostat senses this, and then shuts off the heat when it's reached that upper set point that you've got. The problem with that in hydronic systems, so that's systems that use hot water, is that those systems often overshoot the mark. And that's because hot water systems have a lot of energy stored in the hot water. So if you've got a radiator full of hot water and your room is already as warm as you want it to be, well, chances are pretty good that the temperature of your room is going to exceed the temperature that you set the thermostat on. And that's where a really smart system like the one you see here comes into play. Now this looks just like a regular thermostat. There's nothing to distinguish it from anything else, but the difference is the brains behind the system. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. But essentially what it does is the system learns how fast a particular room heats and cools depending on outdoor temperature, and it anticipates when it should turn on and turn off the heating system. So kind of independently from the set point that you might have programmed in for your ideal room temperature. So for instance, when I first installed this system, it didn't really behave any differently than a regular thermostat system. But then after a few days, I could start to notice the difference. And what would happen is that as the room temperature cooled, the system figured out how fast this particular room was cooling in relation to the outdoor temperature. And it would sometimes, when appropriate, turn the heat on sooner than it normally would with a regular thermostat system. And similarly, as the temperature of the room was rising, sometimes the system will shut the heat off before the system has reached the set point, the ideal temperature that you want your room to be, because the system knows that there's a certain overshooting of temperature. So what does all this mean? Well, essentially, very, very narrow temperature range control in your room. And I've noticed maybe half a degree Celsius is the only amount that it fluctuates. So very even temperature. And why does this matter? Well, comfort is obvious, but it also prevents you overheating certain rooms by overheating the temperature set point that you've got. So it's an anticipatory system, and it works really well. I've had it in my home here for more than 5 years, and it works absolutely flawlessly. So let's go and look at the brains of the system to start with, and then the outdoor temperature sensor that feeds vital information into the system. So this is the brain center of the whole system. There are thermostats like you just saw all around my house, but they all come back to this. And this is the thing that takes all the various inputs, like the speed the room heats, the speed that it cools, outdoor temperature, temperature of the hot water that's going through the system here, takes all that information and turns it into very stable heating results. This has a number of controls on it for how the system behaves, and what you can hear running in the background is actually one of the circulation pumps. So the system is working, it's delivering heat to some part of the house, I don't know where, but I don't really have to because it's all very consistent and smooth because of the smarts that have been programmed into this unit here. This is a part of the system I didn't mention before, and it's an automatic mixing valve. It turns itself this way or that way and mixes the hot incoming water with some of the return water from the rest of the system. So regulating water temperature allows for a smoother, more even room temperature. And once again, this works in harmony with that brain center that I just showed you to regulate water temperature as it flows through the house. This is the outdoor temperature sensor. I happen to have it located underneath a veranda at our house. It's wired right into that brain center that you saw, and it gives the necessary information to the system so it can understand how fast rooms heat up and cool down for a given outdoor temperature. Well, I hope you found this video useful. If you've got a hot water heating system in your home or you're planning to install one, I can strongly recommend a smart thermostat control system like this. If you've enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and liking, and visit me on my website, baileylineroad.com.